Hi, all. Welcome to this session wherein we shall discuss another chapter from the course Organizational Behavior, which is organizational culture. Uh, so, this chapter uh, will allow us to understand what are the various aspects, what are the various dynamics around the forming, the managing of an organization's culture, what are the various aspects that govern the effectiveness of an organizational culture, and various organizations that have stood as illustrations, exemplary best practices for protecting and, and preserving their organization culture, and what are the advantages of organizational culture. Um, why should you have a healthy, effective, a powerful organization culture in place? So let's take a deep plunge into understanding organizational culture. Okay, there we go. Before which, to access or to get the notifications of other chapters of the course or the chapters of other courses, um, I would suggest you to subscribe to this channel. This not only brings the chapters of this course, but that will give you the notifications about various business aspects, various business issues, economic issues from the perspective of the management studies. So, to gain access to all that, subscribe to this channel. Okay, there we go about organizational culture. What is organizational culture? Okay, as the definition suggests, a common perception held by the organization's members. So, who are the organization members we are referring to? It could be the employees, it could be the top management, it could be the middle, it could be um, the the staff, or all those people who are commonly who are combinedly who represent an organization, and they carry a common perception about the organization. What is it common perception? Where is it common perception coming from? We shall dig deeper into the understanding. Okay, and then as an extension, it says a system of shared meaning. Shared meaning. So when all the members, when every member of an organization is carrying a similar interpretation, a similar understanding, a similar perception about the organization they are belonging to, it results in a cumulative effect, a combined effect of the common perceptions, the common feeling, common emotions, common sense held by all the people. So that gives it a massive size of so many people, numerous people holding on to the same belief, same perception about the organization, and that starts reflecting in their behavior, their conduct, their words when they talk, and the practices and processes of this organization, which in due course, over a period of time, results in the forming of the culture of an organization. So, for instance, if you have some of the characteristics which popularly are held as a part of the culture by several organizations. Say, for instance, look at innovation and risk taking. So when you refer to this as a value, cultural value of an organization, which organizations come to your mind? At least what I can think of instantly is Apple, as it has been known for since the founding days, and as on today, since Steve Jobs, Tim Cook. Apple has been held as a mascot for innovation, continuous innovation. They keep coming, they keep on coming with variety of products, a variety of sequences of the same product. So innovation is something that drives the organization. May it be Macintosh, may it be iPod, may it be iPad, or may it be the Air Mac Air, or may it be iPhone and the various series of iPhones. Every product that comes out of the house of Apple is a signature of for innovation. And of course, innovation, where there's innovation, there's humongous amount of risk. You never know whether the idea is going to work or not until you release your product into the market and test it out there, right? So likewise, attention to detail is one more value held as a culture by organization. An organization I can quickly recall here in this context is McKinsey. It's one of the top-notch consulting firms in the world. And what is their so they offer their consulting services, their expertise, their wisdom, their know-how about various strategic situations in the organizations. And where does it come from? Their keen eye for the minutes, for the details, to identify, to think, to visualize complex situations in a very interpretable, simple, understandable, easy manner, to decompose a complex situation into a simple version and conveying it to the client and offering a solution. So all this requires immense amount of detailing, attention to the minutes of detail. Likewise, if you see outcome orientation, result oriented, outcome orientation, suddenly there could, who crosses my mind is Jeff Bezos of Amazon. They are so result oriented, the leader driven organization which is spreading its tentacles into what not a space. The organization which had humble beginnings with as an online bookstore, and then it diversified into the white goods, electronic goods, and then it further expanded as an online store, and then it further expanded into FMCG and all possible goods, services that could be, and then it diversified further into entertainment, into space, and it goes on. So and it requires a very clear thinking and a determined resolve to see that results are brought out at regular intervals, right? People orientation, again, instantly, what comes to my mind in the Indian context is Tata Consultancy Services, or for that matter, any company of Tata Sons, which has always been known for its empathetic view, its concern for its employees, and which reflects in most of the initiatives made be employee engagement, or improving the retention levels, or offering a clear career path for the employees. All these are the initiatives that Tata Sons companies have been known for, and hence, likewise, team orientation. You look at several companies like Hire. I have here, which has set a very clear example, a very convincing example of how it visualizes and it operates organization in terms of smaller teams. So it looks at organization as smaller teams, and it has designed the organization in such a way that the whole organization is split into various micro organizations where the people operate as teams, and with an entrepreneurial spirit, which you refer to as entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial spirit in the organization. So the team efforts is one of the strengths of Hire, as you may read about it. Aggressiveness, I can think of, as you may agree, Tesla and its founder, Elon Musk, the amount of aggressiveness he shows towards bringing out goods, bringing out the products that have hardly been even imagined by, like the three-dimensional tunnels, or driverless cars, or the vehicle into the space, the Falcon series of Tesla, or imagining the colonies that can be built in the Mars, imagining life in the Mars in the next several decades. So that's the kind of, that needs an extremely aggressive um, outlook into the future and working towards it, right? Stability, so not all organizations or not all leaders need to embrace the same set of values. That you could belong to a space, you could be of certain scale and size where what matters more to you than anything else is stability. You ensure that your size and scale are maintained and you're going with stability and with certain grounded pace, not at the cost of growth and progress, but stability is what is a priority of a few organizations. Like I can think of State Bank of India, which has its presence spread across the length and breadth of the country, so much so that now it is careful more about maintaining its stability. It cannot afford to be as aggressive as the smaller ones, the smaller banks, which because of their sheer size they can be aggressive. But State Bank of India, for its size, it prefers to manage its stability and keep going ahead uh, with the stability. Okay, so those are a few examples of what could be the characteristics of culture, and a few illustrations of several organizations that fit into each of the description. Okay, so that takes us to the question: do organizations have uniform cultures? Uh, well, the answer lies in two classifications of culture. uh, what we see on the face of it may not be what it is beneath the fabric of the organization. So this is where you classify culture into two categories. One which is quite visible to all of us, like we have been able to talk about several organizations so far: Amazon, Tesla, State Bank of India, etc. Because we are able to talk about those characteristics which are visible to the outside world, the external world, like innovation, like customer-centric attitude, mutual respect, etc. The core values that are shared by majority of members. However, there is something that lies beneath the visible fabric of the organization culture, which we refer to as subcultures, or which can be defined as those mini cultures which are not reflected in the organization values or in the visible world of the organization, but within an organization, typically defined by department designations, geographic separation. So imagine an organization maybe having same set of values, but then it operates across half a dozen countries. Say for instance McDonald's, right? McDonald's operates in India, in Asia, in Africa, in North America. So it may be having the same standard set of values, but then there are factors like the cultural aspects, the geographic aspects, the ethnic aspects, the work groups in each of these locations, which may find their own ways of operating in such a way that they operate well, they develop the required agility without harming, without distorting, without challenging the dominant cultural values of an organization, right? So these subcultures, which are formed because of various factors as stated, like ethnic affinities, cultural affinities, local or geographic specifications, work groups, interest and hobby groups. These are the ones which are the underlying dynamics beneath the organization, dominant organizational culture. So by that virtue, you can visualize that every organization is characterized by one dominant culture and one subculture, both running hand in hand without challenging each other or without harming each other. Okay, so that takes us to the extension of the discussion. Core values. What are core values? I'm sure you visit any organization's website, and most of the organizations, you take it Fortune 100, Fortune 500 organizations, or Fortune 100 organizations of India, of you visit any organization or the known organizations, any popular organization that you can name, LIC of India, L&T, Infosys, Wipro, or SBI or HDFC. You visit any organization and you would find there is a set of values, or they call as organizational values, which form the core values of an organization, and which define the very purpose of their existence, which describe their engagements, their active participation in the business, and say some of the examples of the values here mentioned over here are so what the values are, the primary or dominant values that are accepted throughout the organization. So if you look at Walmart, for example, these are the four values which it defines as the core values which describe the very existence of Walmart. Service to the customer, respect for the individual, strive for excellence, and act with integrity. Anyone who is not in abidance, who is not in adherence, who is not in observance of these four values does not belong to Walmart. As simple as that. Likewise, Amazon, customer obsession, right? That takes Amazon probably an inch ahead of Walmart, which says customer service to customer. Amazon, you have to be obsessed about customer, whatever he or she demands, requires, requests, orders. You have to be obsessively serving the requests of the customer. Ownership, own up the situations, own up the challenges, own up the requirements, and deliver the duty. Invent and simplify. Invent, keep on a continuous process of innovating, inventing, bringing new things, novel ideas and practices into process, and likewise, learn and be curious. Learn and be curious is a value. So that's the box here must be some typo which I'm ignoring. Learn and be curious is a value. ExxonMobil, likewise, work flexibility, safety and security. So you must be seeing a difference in the quality of values when you compare Amazon with ExxonMobil. They have different set of values. ExxonMobil says work flexibility is important to us, it's a value. Safety and security is very important to us because we work in hazardous conditions. ExxonMobil, being an oil and chemical kind of petro sector company, and there are hazards, there are dangers, there are perils everywhere, and hence safety and security must become our organizational value, right? Likewise, recognizing human rights and the diversity and inclusion, D&I, is a value. So likewise, every organization of certain scale and size, as you see here, they have the core values defined very clearly with the definitions, with the interpretations, which form the fundamental source, fundamental pillar for forming of values, right? What is a strong culture? A culture in which core values are intensely held and widely shared, right? Where the people, every employee, every representative of an organization is in clear understanding of what its core values are, and how to practice those values, how to make them reflect in my day-to-day work at the organization is what strengthens the culture of an organization. Okay, so that is a popular model where the cultures across the organizations across the world have been classified into various types. Now, what are the basis of this classification? If you see, there are two bases broadly. One, the flexibility aspect in an organization. That is one. And two, what is the outlook of an organization? Is the outlook of the organization more into its internal issues, or is it external to the internal issues like the organization's products, processes, people, goals, vision, bottom lines, targets or strategies or the presence, expansion, etc.? Or is it externally focused like the competitors or market capitalization or market share or political policy making, the political climate, the environment issues, etc., etc.? So, what is predominantly the outlook of the organization, whether it is internal to its organization or external to the organization? That's one aspect. And the other one is flexibility, whether the organization believes in allowing flexibility and discretion in the sense liberty to take uh, to take a call, to take a stand, to take a decision. What is the amount of empowerment that the organization has offered to its employees? Whereas down below, the other extreme of flexibility is stability and control, where it is processes and the procedures that define the movements, the decisions of the organization, rather than the people's discretion and liberty to take a decision, right? So if you look at each of the four quadrants, so the left top quadrant, as you see, as it is popularly called as clan, which is characterized by a collaborative attitude, where the culture type is called clan and the orientation is collaborative in nature, because it is a combination of flexible culture and internal, with an internal orientation into the organization. So the leader type that you can imagine there is more of a facilitator, mentor, more than a boss, you see. And what are the and a team builder, more than a manager, he or she is a team builder there. What are the drivers that promote the values? Commitment, communication, and development. And what is the theory of effectiveness suggesting here? Human development and participation, and so is more important towards producing effectiveness than anything else. So the organizations that I can illustrate here, Southwest Airlines is something that very appropriately fits into this description, which we call as clan type of culture, where its founding CEO chairman, Herb Keller. He's of course not the CEO now; he is no more. But the founding CEO chairman, the erstwhile ex-chairman of Southwest Airlines, he has always believed in being just a facilitator who can create the best of the workplace for its employees, so that his employees can take. It's a Southwest Airlines is an airline belonging to the United States of America, and and he has always believed that as long as he is able to, as a leader, he is able to facilitate happiness, satisfaction, engagement to its employees. Employees in turn will take care of the customers, who are the passengers on the board. So that's an example. Likewise, another, you have Starbucks, where a similar leadership spirit is held by the erstwhile CEO Howard Schultz, who had rolled out a very healthy collaborative atmosphere at Starbucks. Likewise, if you look at the the right top corner quadrant, which is a combination of a flexible culture and with an external outlook, so which is referred to as adhocracy. And what is the orientation there? Your outlook is towards external to the organization, and your hold on your people is flexible, allowing more discretion, more liberty to the people. And hence, what is the orientation? The companies which are engaged in creative output, right? And what is the leadership style there, or leader type? He or she has got to be an innovator with an entrepreneurial spirit, and a visionary who is engaged in bringing products or services which have not been there, or which have not been visualized yet, which have not been made yet. Some innovating continuously, right? And what are the values that drive the show here? Innovative outputs, transformation, agility, right? Likewise, theory. What is the theory of effectiveness here? What drives effectiveness in the organization? Innovativeness, vision, and the new resources. So the two organizations that appropriately fit into this description of a culture, adhocratic culture, are Apple and Salesforce.com. Apple, which is, as we described earlier, known for bringing out so many new products. Likewise, Salesforce.com, which has been consistently for the last several years, 5 6 years, it has been consistently named as, ranked as the most innovative company in the Forbes list of most innovative companies across the world, which is known for its cloud services offered to numerous clients across the world. Is So both the organizations fit into the description of adhocratic culture. Likewise, if you come down to the left bottom quadrant, which we refer to as a hierarchy or hierarchical culture, where the outlook is into internal affairs of the organization with emphasis on stability and control over um, flexibility and discretion. So two organizations you can visualize here is Amazon. So while it is innovative on one hand, but then it is run with an tightly held control of its management, and the leadership style is quite what do you call the controlling. And likewise, Virgin Group, if you have heard of the organization, Virgin Group, founded by Richard Branson, which is again an organization which is quite hierarchical in nature, and it is held by the leader's vision, leader's strategy, leader's control, and thus it fits into a hierarchical type of organization. Likewise, the last one, the right bottom corner, market culture, where the orientation is more towards outside the organization, external focus, and the emphasis is on stability and control. So two organizations that I can quickly think of here is State Bank of India, whose orientation is definitely by the virtue of business that they are into, banking and insurance. The focus has to be outside. However, they are of such scale and size. Both these organizations are of such scale and size and such mature that they have to lay their emphasis on stability and control. So just to look at the drivers here, leader type is hard driver. They have to have a strong hold on the resources, human resources and non-human resources. They are competitive in nature, um, and the drivers. Market share is a driver, definitely. Goal achievement, profitability. If you relate each of these drivers to SBI or LIC of India, you would realize they actually fit appropriately. And what is the theory of effectiveness here? Aggressively competing and customer focus is what produces effectiveness here. So I think that gives a clear understanding of what each of these types of cultures is, how are they characterized, and how can they be illustrated with the help of those organizations, by understanding the priorities of those organizations. Okay, so that takes us to the very basic questions. Okay, that was culture, that was types of culture, but what do cultures do? What is their contribution to an organization and to other aspects of an organization? So as you see, culture makes boundaries between organizations. What is the difference? What is the point of difference between Apple and any of its other competitors? Apple will have definitely a lot of competitors. It has Qualcomm, it has Dell, it has Microsoft, numerous competitors. Whoever is who is into the making of tech gadgets. But then there's something that draws attention towards Apple, right? Its culture of continuously innovating something. Its culture of its obsession towards making its products look good and beautiful. That was a vision laid down by the founder, Steve Jobs, who was so obsessive, who was so very particular about making its products look good. The tech inside can be embedded by several players, but not all are so very obsessive about making the product look so good that it becomes the the unique selling proposition of your product, and that's what it has become. So that's been laid down as a culture which distinguishes, which differentiates Apple from the rest. Likewise, conveys a sense of identity, right? Salesforce, again, innovation, but in its own capacity, in its own way, in its own direction. Um, so today, Salesforce has become so unique. When you think of cloud services, the first name that rings a bell in anybody's mind who's aware of the cloud, the cloud space, is Salesforce. That's a kind of that's the advantage of being the first mover and the leader of. So a culture conveys a sense of identity to the company, commitment to something larger than self. I think here with pride I can illustrate the name of Bharat Biotech, who until until about 4 years ago it was also a pharma company like so many other pharma companies operating in India. But then the outbreak of the coronavirus, COVID, um, was was seen as a huge opportunity by this pharma company called Bharat Biotech, and they grabbed it. They got into their laboratories. They conducted a series of experiments, and they came up with the the vaccination, which proved instrumental in controlling the spread of the pandemic and bringing it down. So, commitment to something larger than self is so very clearly seen in Bharat Biotech. Um, Covaxin, I think Covaxin is the name of the vaccination which was rolled out across the length and breadth of the country. Not only India, it was exported to many countries. So that was a thumping, resounding success, where the organization showed its commitment to go beyond its limits, its boundaries, and serve the country, the people, and and solve the problem. Likewise, enhances the stability of the social system. So every organization has a social system in its own capacity. Wherever you are people, you have a social system that forms by itself out of frequent interactions, out of the togetherness, the camaraderie that you get to see or that you need to have in the workplaces. So the culture is that soft, invisible fabric which brings people together, which prompts them to go in the same direction, and hence, like you see in the Tata group of companies, many other companies, just to illustrate the Tata group of companies, where the company is extremely concerned about the people dynamics, right? And hence it enhances, as it says, stability of the social system within the organization, by getting them closer, by acclimatizing them with the culture, with the organization, and among the people, by ensuring that the teams, individuals, and the groups, they operate effectively towards the common cause of the organization's growth, right? Likewise, it serves as a sense making and a control mechanism for fitting employees in the organization. That's I think to me is the most important aspect. How do you make sure that every new person that you are recruiting into the organization is fitting into your culture or not? Unfortunately, not many organizations are actually bothered about this question. Most of the organizations, I would say, they play a kind of trial and error, only to see that a few fit and few may not fit into the fabric. But few organizations, like Google, I can refer here very comfortably, who are very particular about ensuring that every new person who joins the organization is belonging to, or has a resembling personal value system of his or her own, right there, so that there is least scope for the friction or conflict between personal value system and organizational value system. So culture gives you a base, a, a an indicator, a guidance on whom to bring in and whom not to during the recruitment process. So that's one way of that those are several ways in which culture contributes to an organization. And where do you see uh, the culture becoming a liability? When the culture is when there is a huge call for a change may be at a lower level or at a huge scale, at an organizational level scale, when you have to embrace change, your existing cultural contours, cultural practices, or your existing values or practices might become a, a problem, a challenge for you. For instance, Oracle. Once it was such a successful organization. I'm sure you must have heard of Oracle, which was a leader at one point of time into the ERP, the SAP solutions, to the enterprise resource planning solutions, software solutions to the organizations. It was doing so well until the advent of the cloud services. Right, once the cloud came in, not only Oracle, there are several more organizations, but one of these organizations was Oracle, and it somehow it missed the buzz, and it could not uh, embrace the change as swiftly as some of its peers in the sector could, and it missed the bus, right? Likewise, it could be barrier to diversity, right? IBM could be an example of where diversity in terms of say once you are into certain um, products or certain categories, but then the need of the business calls you to diversify, to think more, think new. You can't get fixated to one product or two products that you've been making and expect those to sell for years, right? You have to embrace the change, you have to think new, you have to spread your capabilities, your people, your talent, your resources across various options. So that's one reason how IBM also, like Oracle, could not see the need to go beyond the hardware or beyond ERP, and it took some time, which made a dent on its performance. Likewise, barriers to acquisitions and mergers. So when there is a marriage of two companies that belong to two different cultures altogether, one of the classic illustrations I may suggest here is Daimler, which is a German automotive company, and Chrysler, which is an American automotive company, which with a very good, healthy intent, they came together to get merged and operate as single entity. But then the cultures that they belong to, the diverse cultures that they belong to, became a huge barrier for both of them, and they did merge, they did try to operate for some days, but then it could not last for more than a year, prompting both the people to back off, to de-merge, and carry out their respective operations as they used to. So it was, in other words, it was a failure of an attempted merger. So that's those are the ways in which culture may sometime become a liability. Okay, how does this culture thing begin? Where has it got its roots? I think the number one answer to that would be founders. The founders come with a vision, a very clear vision. They have a very long sighted vision, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, and they come with a very strong and very clear sense of purpose, the reason for existence. Why am I here? What do I want this organization to do? How does it plan to serve the its customers, its intended customers? These are some of the questions that are absolute, the answers to which are crystal clear in the minds of these leaders, the founders, and it is their their responsibility to ensure that their vision and the elaboration of their vision is passed on to the next rung leaders, the next rung leaders, and it is passed on the timeline through the decades that it operates, right? So if you look at some of those people who are founders of their respective organizations, except Jack Welch, that you see as the second photograph. He may not be the founder of General Electric, but then he is so tall. He's proved so tall a leader, so crucial, so instrumental leader that he almost redesigned, he restructured, and it was like a rebirth to this company called General Electric. So it is his vision which governs the value system, the culture of the organization. Rest of the people, you may. So I mean by it's the leader's job to ensure that they pass on their vision, their values to the next generation leaders, which is precisely what we mean here by indoctrinating their principles. You are indoctrinating your principle. Founders indoctrinate their principles into the leaders, which is you have to infuse, you have to inject, you have to ensure that the value system that these people, the leaders, the founding leaders bring is absorbed, is assimilated by the people around the leaders and the next rung leaders and employees, and in due course, so well so that it becomes the way of operating the organization, right? And you may actually realize those you may identify some of the images there. Jack Ma, the third photograph, third image, who is founder Alibaba, China's biggest online retailer. Similarly, he brought a vision which he passed on to the next. So the vision is so strong and so compelling that it does not read. The organization doesn't need these leaders anymore to ensure that the culture is prevailing healthy. None of these leaders are actually operating their organizations as on day. They are all the leaders who founded the organization. They passed on the baton to the next rung leaders, and they moved on, right? Likewise, they act as role models. Role models like Dhirubhai Ambani, you may agree, the role models to not only the leaders of that organization, but organizations across, the aspiring leaders or the aspiring managers. They internalize their beliefs, values, and assumptions, as we discussed earlier. And you can see the two images below. Verghese Kurian, the great man who had led a movement, one of the most popular movements in the Indian context, called White Revolution. I don't know how the students of this generation can identify with or can actually recall what White Revolution is. It was one of the greatest movements led by this organization called Amul, Anand Milk Union Limited, which was helmed by Verghese Kurian, the gentleman you see in the image, who was a leader of White Revolution, ensuring that India emerges as one of the largest milk producing countries in the world, right? He pooled the milk yielding activity as a collective mechanism, and he created cooperatives in the state of Gujarat, which became a huge success, an immensely successful model, leading to excellence of this firm called Amul. Likewise, resulting is forming and strengthening of culture. You may identify the great man in the bottom corner, J.R.D. Tata, who is instrumental for founding of a few of the biggest, most successful organizations in the country, in the world. Call it Air India, call it Tata Steel, or call it Taj Group of hotels, and so on and so forth. So it is the leaders. It begins with the leaders, their vision, their personal values, which become the business values, the corporate values for the company, which are indoctrinated among these next generation leaders and employees, and thus, in due course, it becomes the culture. Okay. Uh, how do you keep that alive once it is formed, once it is enjoying its culture, the organization is enjoying its culture? How do you ensure that it is held intact, alive? Selection, concern with how well candidates will fit into organizations. So you have, so the organization has to take care, the leaders have to take care that while they are recruiting, they are selecting candidates who fall in alignment with the organization's culture, right? As they say, the technical content can be taught, can be trained, can be developed, but when it comes to the attitudinal issues, which has an impact on the culture of the organization, it's even more difficult. So better you recruit such candidates who show a very convincing evidence of a possibility that they are in alignment with your organization's culture. That's it. Um, and top management, yeah, the senior executives help establish behavioral norms. As we saw, the leaders in the previous slide, uh, senior executives help establish behavioral norms that are adopted by the organization. And then socializing, of course, the internal mingling, internal acclimatization, acculturization of the employees happen as they get to know more people, larger ecosystems within the organization, socializing within the organization with the help of your intranets or frequent events, get-togethers, or the town hall speeches, or several such occasions where people come together, exchange their views, opinions, and share a common perception, common belief system about the organization is what strengthens the culture and keeps it alive for a long period of time. So that's one. In fact, going back to the previous, that's one. That is one reason why the organizations are all the more in the interest of like we have seen in the COVID wave, the work from home practice has become very successful model in the event of emergency. But why do you think organizations are urging the employees to come back to the offices and to put a stop to work from home? When you are working from your home, work might get done, work may be delivered on time, but then what about people coming closer to each other, people exchanging views? What about the society, the organization socializing, the societies, the micro societies in the organizations which contribute largely towards the protection of organization's culture? That goes completely missing, which is one reason why, though work from home offers actually numerous benefits, like your cost is controlled, cost is reduced, your efficiencies go up, your productivities go up. Despite all these benefits, the organizations want people to come down physically to the office and work in the office premises, because the work from home might result in erosion of organizations' culture, in damaging organizations' culture, right? Okay. Stages in socializing. What are those? Pre-arrival, which includes the stages of receipt of communication of appointment. As soon as the candidate receives the appointment letter, and then he or she should be in the process of knowing more about the organization, educating oneself about the company from various sources. It could be from the websites, the articles, news, or various other avenues, online, offline, where he or she can know more about the organization. Encounter stage, where the first instance of meeting of the candidate meeting the organization, which is referred to as onboarding or immersion, where the company the organization takes the selected candidates, recruited candidates through a very thorough, a very structured, a methodical process of acclimatizing or acquainting, familiarizing the candidate with the various cultural aspects, various operational aspects of the organization. And usually the organizations say the first 100 days is like the honeymoon period for the employees to actively participate in knowing more about the organization, so that after the 100 days, they are through a very thorough process, a thorough immersive process of acculturizing the employees, and they start behaving as belonging to this organization and its culture. Finally, metamorphosis, where the candidate is completely now engaged into the work, the projects, the teams, the boss interactions, the client interactions, experiences, etc., where the candidate now belongs to this space. The candidate starts talking the lingo, the language of the organization, starts visualizing things from the perspective of the organization, and he or she behaves more as a representative of this organization. So those are the three stages that are involved in the socializing process in an organization: pre-arrival, encounter, and metamorphosis. Okay, so how do we learn about culture? There are various sources. Stories are the most interesting aspects of, like, for example, there are many famous stories. One example I can pick here is of Johnson and Johnson. As you see, say, if you look at the unfortunate incident of Tylenol, one of the most popular at one point of time, one of the most popular products of Johnson and Johnson, which got into a crisis, which brought the entire company into a crisis because of an unfortunate situation. And then what was the leader's disposition? What was the leader's immediate response to the given situation had become a huge story, which spoke about the culture, the leader's capability, the leader's responsiveness, the leader's effective way of managing the crisis and preventing the company from sinking because of the size of the crisis. So likewise, or Starbucks or SpaceX. If you look at the stories of Falcon, various series, the failure stories of Falcon, and despite the initial 7 or 8 failures, 7 vehicles or 8 vehicles of Falcon series had failed to leave the atmosphere of Earth and enter into the space. Despite that, it was the perseverance, it was the persistence, it was a courage and a clear vision of its leader, Elon Musk, to stay patient and wait for a successful attempt. And Falcon 9, I think, was a successful attempt that successfully eventually went into the space. Likewise, so stories are a great source to reinforce the belief in the culture of the organization. Rituals, practices, annual practices, periodic practices, like Google has a practice of this peer bonus. Peer bonus, when an organization, when an employee leaves the organization, there is a practice of and when a performer, when a very dear one, a performer leaves the organization, there is this practice of gifting an employee's bonus to the leaving employee, which is a mark of recognition, mark of respect, mark of a token of love for the performance, for the camaraderie, for the spirit that the employee has always shared. On the note of exit, it's given away to the employee. So that's a practice, that's a ritual that speaks strong about Google's culture. Likewise, the organizations like Zomato and Netflix, who in their initiatives, as a part of the initiative to empower women, recognize women, they have initiated period leave. When the women employees are in their monthly menstrual cycle, they recognize the discomfort of women, and they they announce, Zomato had announced leave, 3 days paid leave to women during the month. Likewise, Netflix in fact has is maternity leave is definitely one feature commonly held across the organization. But then Netflix has gone a step beyond, wherein it offers a maternity leave of more than 1 year paid leave to the mothers, new mothers, may it be biological child, may it be adopted child, irrespective. As soon as the child comes into the life, the employees can exercise, the women employees can exercise 1 year leave, paid leave, as offered by. So that's a ritual. These are the rituals which make the people of the organization proud, and it talks strong and tall about the culture of the organization. Material symbols, some of the organizations have such popular symbols, their logos or symbols which talk about the strength of their organization, right? Like McDonald's, the M of, I don't need to call out the companies which those symbols belong to, and the very fact that I don't have to call out the name suggests how strong those symbols are, and hence how they contribute to their respective organizations. Likewise, the language of the organization, like workouts, boundarylessness, Six Sigma, if I have to associate all these three words with one organization, it would be nothing other than General Electric. So the successful organizations with very strong culture have their own lingo, have their own set of words, the language which strengthens the organization's culture further. So those are some of the sources how employees learn their organization culture. And how do you create an ethical organization culture? Ethics is equally important, and characteristics of ethical organizations: high tolerance for risk. I think a company that I can refer to is Amazon, Tesla, for the kind of huge sweeping risks they take towards achieving greater goals. That's a characteristic of an organization. Low to moderate in aggressiveness. You can be aggressive, but then calculated aggressiveness, like you see the State Bank of India, as we discussed earlier. Likewise, focus on means as well as outcomes. So there are two ways of looking at an outcome: whether ends justify the means or means justify the ends. So if the organizations which are very particular about staying ethical, being spoken about for their ethical approaches, they are equally as much bothered about the means as they are about achieving the ends, right? So means, you cannot be kinked or deviant or questionable means of achieving the ends. Like for instance, you may have heard of organizations which are going through the trial of the court for several cases, like data breaching, data impinging, data leakage, in order to gain more market share or more visibility, or gain the leadership in the segment. All those are questionable ways of attaining your outcomes, which may not speak very high about the ethicality, the ethical stand of the organization. Okay, practices that promote ethics. Leader. The onus largely lies on the leader, being a visible role model. As you see, some of the images that you can very well relate to: Ratan Tata, N.R. Narayan-Murthy, Ratan Tata of Tata Sons, N.R. Narayan-Murthy of Infosys. Leaders who are spoken with reverence, with respect. They are visible role models. Deepak Parekh of HDFC, or Mr. Kamath, K.V. Kamath of ICICI. These are all the leaders, tall leaders who have left such strong and huge footprints that that ethics and ethical practices meant everything to them. Communicating ethical expectations, providing ethical training. These are some of the practices that many organizations have embraced, have started rolling out trainings in ethics. rewarding ethical acts, right? When you find somebody, an employee, who has demonstrated a gesture of uh, ethicality by calling out something wrong, or by preventing a wrongdoing, or whistleblowing, as you may call whistleblowing, where you call out a wrongdoing being done by somebody at some point of time. So you need to, the organizations need to recognize them for the excellent gesture that they have showcased, that they have demonstrated. Punishing the unethical ones is equally important, right? We must have seen people who have, irrespective of rank and file, when you see people engaged in unethical means of, like Mr. Rajat Gupta, I can quote here, who has served a term in the jail because of his indulgence in the insider trading. Insider trading is leaking the insider information about an organization to the external sources, which might result in an unfair advantage to the people outside and the person involved in the whole transaction. That's unethical. So you can't shy away from such acts. You have to bring that clearly out and punish it, right? Providing protective mechanisms. What about those whistleblowers who initiate, but then they fear a backlash, they fear a vengeance, they fear a revenge? There have been several unfortunate such cases where people have called out the wrongdoing, and they have faced adverse consequences. That should not be the case. The necessary adequate protection veil must be provided to such heroes of ethical practices. Okay, so spirituality, that's another dimension altogether, and it tries to explore a possibility, if the culture of an organization and spirituality, do they have a connect? Quite possible. And the recognition that people have in an inner life that nourishes and is nourished by meaningful work. So how do you understand spirituality here? Recognition that people have an inner life. So the inner life is further supported by a healthy culture, is nourished by meaningful work that takes place. So the point that it tries to make is a healthy culture, a strong sense of purpose. Why am I here? Is extremely important to bring a spiritual connect between the organization and the individual, which further facilitates individual development, trust and openness among the employees, empowers the employees, and it makes the employees tolerant. Toleration of employee expression, which facilitates more liberty, more freedom within the space, making the organization space more conducive, mutually friendly, with a healthy camaraderie, which all contribute in turn to the spiritual quotient of the organization. Okay, so that brings us to the close of the chapter, and that's in principle about the organization's culture. So we'll be back with another video on another chapter. Thank you all. Signing off.